we're going to talk about how to market and sell flood insurance. We know it's everybody's favorite line of business, especially for the personal lines folks. So we try to make it a little bit easier with our private flood product. And some of the things we are going to talk about today is who needs flood insurance? I know this sounds like a very easy question to answer, but you might be surprised with some of the things we talk about. We're going to talk about educating ourselves and making it so that we have an expert in our office for flood and becoming the expert in your community. Creating the community, which you'll see once we get to that slide, involves some creative thinking and marketing to some people who you already have access to. Doing your research, again, that goes back to making yourself the expert and then helping us help you because we actually have some in-house marketing tools that will be able to help your agency utilize to get more business in, things like lead generation and 4 or 5 other items that we're going to go over at the end of this. Okay, so who needs flood insurance? So you may have heard people in flood insurance, all of us flood nerds say once or twice, everybody needs flood insurance. Well, we kind of put a list together here to show you exactly who needs flood insurance. Homes that are located in an area where it rains, that's pretty much everybody. Homes located in an area where it snows. Homes located where there's storm drains, because in a lot of areas in the United States, the storm drains are aging and they tend to fail more often these days. So anytime, I know in my neighborhood, when we have a big rainstorm, the drains will start to overflow and start to flood the streets and the homes and businesses nearby. So you may live in an area that is similar to where I am today. Also, homes with pools. So the best example to use here is if you have an above ground pool that maybe one of the walls fails and the water comes out, the water gets in your house, your neighbor's house, and that actually does count as surface water. So your flood policy would end up having to pay that claim out. It wouldn't necessarily be covered on your homeowners. So definitely something to think about. And then, just in conclusion to this slide, basically any home with a potential of surface water of any kind, be it, like I said, overflowing storm drains, a water main break, rain, snow melt, overflowing rivers, streams, creeks, and pools, even down to leaving a hose on that results in pooling in a certain area getting into the home. Soraya and Naomi, did I miss anything as far as who
Um,
needs flood?
I would say my biggest thing is just stay away from the thinking of we have to go by the just what FEMA flood maps tell you. So you have a lot of clients that come in and say, "Well, I'm not in a flood zone." So that slide is basically there to help you think outside of the box that, pretty much everyone is in a flood zone. Not pretty much, they are. So try to think outside the box a little bit and not just stick to the FEMA flood maps and what they say.
If it rains where you live, you need flood.
Living
Yes.
like a true flood nerd. All right. So one of the things I spoke about during the topics earlier was creating a community. And what I mean by that is typically, if you have children, you're at different sporting events, you know their coaches, you know your neighbors, you know your kids' friends' parents, and all that stuff. They may be real estate agents, mortgage brokers, property inspectors, and other people that can refer customers to you for flood insurance, or they may be a future customer themselves. At this point, they don't know what they don't know. So I always say just spark up a conversation at any kind of local events that you have, anywhere that you're going to be selling insurance. I mean, not necessarily to this population, but anybody else, because you'll be surprised with when you tell them that you do flood insurance, how many questions that they might have. Um, and one of the things I have listed on here is other insurance agents, and that might sound like a strange idea because why would you reach out to some of your competitors that are local? You're obviously all going after the same business. That doesn't necessarily ring true for flood insurance. I know when I was an agent, we had agreements with a lot of other agencies that were local that just did not want to deal with flood insurance, or they didn't have the capacity, didn't know enough about it, and they knew that we had experts at our agency that dealt with flood all the time. So rather than doing it themselves, they had to deal with us that they would get a referral fee or some commission based on their leads that they send to us and those connections that they made for us. So I would always suggest to become that expert in the community. So everybody, anytime they hear flood insurance, your name is the first name that pops into your head. Am I missing any other community folks? Terry, Naomi, Soraya, anybody?
I really honestly think that anybody that you can speak to in regards to flood is a good candidate to add to your community. At the end of the day, again, it's a topic that is not, it's not only not popular, but it's just like not fun to discuss, and people don't even think about it. I can't tell you how many people here in Florida, at least, have learned because of Ian, the fact that flood insurance, any flood is not covered by homeowners. And unfortunately, they discovered that once their home was completely obliterated by a flood, but that's neither here nor there. So it's, the possibilities are there.
And the truth is, if anybody has helped deal with either buying a flood policy or dealing with a flood claim, they know how difficult it could be. And most of those folks don't even know there's options out there besides the NFIP. So once you start talking about it as the expert and you know that there's different markets, people are going to be really grateful for your advice. So I definitely recommend reaching out to all the folks in your community once you have enough knowledge to back it up.
Yep.
So that goes back to also doing your research. So how do you become the expert in your community? You have to do your research. And one of the easiest things to do is in your community, there are always flood zones. There's flood zones everywhere. So I would always go to the FEMA flood map website, and you can search around for certain addresses where you know there might be some sort of water source, if it's a stream or a creek or a river. Sometimes they're dry streams that you might not even realize those houses could be in a flood zone, because if there's one really strong storm coming through, the rivers tend to overflow into those streams and they can flood those properties. A lot of your customers may combat you and say, well, we're in a 100-year flood zone and it hasn't been 100 years. That's not really what that means. And also, like we just talked about, flood zones are so outdated these days. Wherever there was once water can be water again. So definitely use that to educate your customers. Smartflood.gov also has a lot of tools for you to use for marketing purposes. They have some things you can add to your website to educate your customers more. They even have a really cool tool that shows how much even just 1 inch of water in their house could cost them to replace. So I definitely recommend going to those places, doing your research on there. You can use sites like Zillow and any other real estate sites that you have at your disposal and use those to look at the FEMA maps. And then that way you can see who the listing agents are and maybe reach out to those to start creating that community we were speaking about. One of the best things that you can do is knowing the insurance markets for the areas that you're selling flood insurance in, because there are so many markets out there today, so many products that may do better in your area than others. NFIP may be the best one to go to beyond floods, and even some of our competitors might be. We're not always going to be the silver bullet either. We're a voluntary program, so we're not here to write everything. We're here to write the risks that fit into our program. And every other private flood company out there is going to be very similar to that. But in addition to what we're going to talk about on the next screen, we also, in all of the Beyond Floods quotes, we include a flood outlook report. And I'm going to let one of our experts, our quoting experts, talk a little bit more about that. So if one of the other lovely ladies on the call would like to take that and explain a little bit more what a flood outlook report is.
I'll go ahead and take it. A flood outlook report is basically a great education tool that hopefully by you educating your insured, it'll get them to know what their true exposure to flood is, so they can buy the policy. We use over 60 flood risk factors and over 3 trillion data points in order to evaluate every property. So we're giving you the true exposure to flood. I know that there's so many people out there who think that just because they're in a next zone, they're automatically exempt from a flood, and that is usually never the case. So again, it's just a tool that we have, that we make available to you so that you can educate your client on what their true exposure to flood, and why not take advantage of that. So, I mean, ideally, we want you to sell our policy, obviously, but as Lauren had mentioned, we're not the be all and end all. So if you can even use that information to sell our NFIP product, then even better. Either way, the best thing that you can do is just educate your client. Unfortunately, we have gone away from being risk managers and instead being order takers. And we really have no time to like really educate our insureds. And that is really what we need to do. And that's why we have created this flood outlook report, to be able to give you that information.
Yep, exactly. There's definitely risk factors that your customers and even you as the agent may not even be thinking about that will print out on there. So it's a really good sales tool.
Mhm.
All right, so now we're going to go into some of the tools that we offer to our agents as our partners. We always like to make sure you have everything at your disposal. So the first thing we'll talk about is our lead gen quote widget, which is a link that our product team can come up with for you. You could either use it for email marketing or to put right on your website, and that way customers could come right to your site or via your email and get an actual quote, and that will end up in your system. They'll email you the lead and you'll be able to follow up with your customer. So as long as they're entering the information the right way, that is going to be a bindable price for the most part. We also have a book analysis with Ivan's capabilities. So if you have a policy management system where you have all of your information for your homeowners, other property information, or even some of your flood information, we have the ability to use Ivan's to go into your management system and pull that information to get quotes with our Beyond Floods product that will return actual prices, bindable quotes for you, then end up in your system so you can finish out the quote and bind it. Really, really easy system. In the next couple of months, we're going to be developing more and more content that you'll be able to start sharing on your social and via email marketing. That will be really helpful, especially in creating that community that we talked about earlier and becoming that expert. We do also offer some office incentives. Those could be quotes per bound policy, or we can even get creative with whatever you feel like your agency will respond to amongst your producers and CSRs. I definitely recommend reaching out to either Soraya or Naomi to start having those conversations, because we are looking to grow this year and we really want to educate as many agents as we can. So if that is an incentive for your agency to earn some extra cash as well, definitely bring it up to us and we'll be happy to talk about that. We also have some book roll opportunities with the NFIP, especially. A lot of companies have been moving around with different platforms, and I know some of them are easier than others. So if you're looking to switch platforms into another company, maybe get an extra point or two on the rollover, even make some extra money, we have a really almost hands-free way of doing a book roll where we would just take your login information. Our team takes all the policy information out of your current book and automatically sends out renewals for you. So it's really, really easy to do. Doesn't take much time, and then over a full year, eventually your whole book should be able to roll out of that other program you don't want anymore. So on the right hand side here, you can see all of our contact information. Like I said, Naomi Fields is on the western side of the country, Soraya Gresham is on the eastern zone, and then I am the director. Feel free to reach out to any of us. We're going to be following up with you. This is also being recorded, this presentation, so it will be available in a few days on our website. So if you want to send it over to anybody else in your agency, feel free to do that. But we'll also be following up by email with our contact information as well. And I don't see anything in the chat. But Soraya and Naomi or Terry, have I missed anything that we should be introducing to our agents before we let them go?
I don't think we've really missed anything. I think the only thing that I would add is just make sure that, I mean, we all know that this is a relationship, business. So make sure that you partner up with a carrier that it really is looking for to expand a relationship, to make sure that if you're not that ace yet into flood, we can give you tools, how to learn and how to look at the information and how to be that go-to person in your agency or in your community so that you can grow. The important part is just making sure that you have that relationship with that carrier so that you have all the tools available at your fingertips.
All right. And with that, we just want to say we appreciate your time here that you spent with us today. I know everybody is very limited on time. That's why we like this 15-minute platform. The next one we're going to have is going to be the third Wednesday of February. So look for those emails to come out. And the topic on that is going to be after the sale. So after you sell the flood policy with Beyond Floods, what happens next? How do you make the payments? How do you service the account, etc.? So if you're interested in any of that information, please feel free to register for the next webinar, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.